So the situation with Tom Sandoval blew up yesterday in regards to this interview that he did with the New York Times Magazine and him associating the Scandoval with O.J. Simpson and George Floyd. Since then, Tom has issued an apology, and as you also know, last night was the latest episode of Vanderpump Rules. How are you feeling about this season so far? It's only, 4 episodes in? And some people are saying we're over it, and we're over Tom Sandoval.
Baby, won't you listen to me? I got that flavor. I know you're dying to feed. I ain't no dancer, just got some hip in my feet. Now throw your hands up. Ooh, you bring the lighter. I got the fuse. You make a fire. I'll add the fuel. Follow my lead. Just watch your shoes. Gotta turn the heat up to get this cool.
Welcome back to the Kempire channel, your number one source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. And don't forget, you can take us on the go by downloading the Kempire podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. While you're there, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. We've dropped a lot of content there in the last couple of days, including a snippet, more than a snippet, 45 minutes from our sold-out New York City show for the Kempire After Dark experience. Speaking of the Kempire After Dark experience, Philly, we're coming March 7th. Tickets have gone on sale. Boston, Atlanta, tickets are also now available for our dates that are coming up in May and July. And just announced, Nashville, we're coming to your city July 11th. More information on those tickets will be available in the description as well. Tickets for Nashville go on sale this Friday. So be sure to get your tickets while tickets last. Can't wait to see all of you. So this is our weekly recap of Vanderpump Rules. Guys, if you had to rate this week's episode from 1 to 10, how would you rate it? I thought it was a solid episode. I would probably give this in the range of 6.5 to 7, possibly 7 being generous, because I'm not feeling the season so far. And again, I always say I'm not sure it's because we know so much. I don't know. It's not hitting for me. And I have watched older seasons, and I got why Vanderpump Rules was a favorite show of a lot of you. But this season, I'm just sort of like, I don't know. And it's not because the group is divided, because only one person sort of like left out of the group, and that's Tom Sandoval. So Tom Sandoval did an interview with New York Times Magazine, and one particular quote is getting him in a lot of hot water. So in the New York Times Magazine article, it says this: I asked Sandoval why he thought the scandal got so big. Tom responded and says, I'm not a pop culture historian, really, he says. Or should I read in his voice? I'm not a pop culture historian, really, but I witnessed the O.J. Simpson thing and the George Floyd and all these big things, which is really weird to compare this to that. Yet he still says it. I think, but do you think in a weird way it's a little bit the same? Here's the thing. I find it so interesting, especially in our Black History Month, that those are the two major things that stands out to Tom Sandoval. There are so many things that happen scandalicious in Hollywood. And these are two things that aren't even recent. And even if I just don't understand why O.J. Simpson and Tom Sandoval and Scandoval and George Floyd were on his mind, and he's used that as his way of comparing. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. All right? So they continue. It says, I looked over at Riley, who was typing furiously on her phone. I think I knew what he meant. He was trying to express the oddity of becoming the symbolic center of a nationwide discussion and a major news story. What he communicated instead was something more honest, which is just how much the experience had made him lose perspective. So the article also mentions Bravo said it would get back to me about next steps. While I waited, I thought more about Sandoval. When you're lost, sometimes it's helpful to go back to the beginning. Sandoval arrived in Los Angeles in 2004 with the hopes of becoming an actor. But another portion from this article that I wanted to mention in regards to Bravo, it's interesting because that part just kind of gives you an idea of what happened after Tom said what he said in this interview. So the article says, the next day, I was supposed to attend the taping of one of Sandoval's confessional interviews for the show. I was about to get in my car when I received a text from his publicist, Riley's boss. He'd rather you don't attend today, it read. He's not feeling the best. The next morning, I got a call from Baskin, Alex Baskin, and the showrunner for Beverly Hills and for Vanderpump Rules. And the day after that, a Bravo publicist rang me late on a Friday. Some of what Sandoval had said had gotten back to Bravo, and everyone was concerned. What was it that he said about O.J. Simpson and George Floyd exactly? Maybe Sandoval wasn't ready for this. The Bravo publicist asked if I really needed to see Sandoval again. Could the network facilitate an interview with one of the show's other stars? So Bravo was scrambling. In regards to this situation. So they knew. And I wonder if they prepared themselves for this. And I find it interesting that they knew about this, yet now, today, we're getting an apology from Tom Sandoval. I don't know if they try to put a kibosh on the interview or not, but interesting. Sidebar, our friends over at Bravo While Black posted that Tom Sandoval, interestingly, issued this apology. And I'll just read you the apology. This was Tom Sandoval's Instagram story apology. My intentions behind the comments I made in the New York Times Magazine were to explain the level of national media attention my affair received. The comparison was inappropriate and ignorant. I'm incredibly sorry and embarrassed. But are you embarrassed that one of the very few Black blogs, Instagram accounts, podcasts that covers your show, you decided to block? So Bravo We're Black posted on their social media that they had been blocked by Tom Sandoval. So I had to go double check. I was like, did he block me? I was like, wait a minute. Nope, I'm still not blocked. But who knows? By the time y'all see this, I could be. Who cares? I don't even care to see Tom's stuff. I will eventually see it because not everyone's been blocked. So here's my thing on this situation. I find it weird that he would make that comparison. I find it weird with so many scandals in the world that these two Black-centered scandals were at the front of his mind. It's weird. But Tom Sandoval, as we've said countless times, is just strange. And he is the textbook narcissist. He has no sort of idea of what he's saying and doing. And look, and I think he does at the same time, but I feel like in his world, he sounds correct. I hope that he really is in therapy for a variety of reasons. Based off of this episode and LVP going around to all the friends and saying, I think he's in a dark place. I need you guys to be a little bit more supportive and understanding for him. And I appreciate LVP doing this because in reality, no matter how you feel about Tom Sandoval, the last thing I want, you want, the audience wants is for him to do anything to himself. You might not like him, but you don't want him to do anything to himself because at the end of the day, he's still someone's child. He's still someone's brother, I think. Does he have siblings? But he's still someone's family member and they don't want to see. And he's still someone's friend. No matter how you guys feel, he still has some friends. All right, he's filming with Billy this season because no one else will film with him. So let's get into this episode, guys. If you're just joining us, this is our weekly recap. I can't even say, I'm not going to even promise you guys weekly recaps because after this scandal today, I really didn't even want to watch the episode and I didn't want to recap the show, to be honest. Just because the season hasn't been great. Tom Sandoval saying what he said, I was just like, oh, why am I watching this show? Why am I talking about these people? But I'm kind of glad because we're still talking about mental health. And this video is not sponsored by BetterHelp, but If you want 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, I'll post it in the description because I still want you to get mental health, even if they're not sponsoring the video or not. BetterHelp.com/Kempire for 10% off your first visit. Look, because like I said, okay, can I just talk? I don't even care about what happened in this episode. James is throwing a pool party. He spent $2,000 on it. Who cares? Ariana was in a lift, and the same guy that drove her the night that she got into a fight with Tom was the same Lyft driver. Mind you, they're right. There are a lot of people on Reddit. There are a lot of people that want to interview him. I'm sure they're probably looking for this man now because God only knows what he heard that night when she found out, March 1st of 2023, when she found out that he had been cheating. They were in the same lift on the way home. I'm surprised she even did that. I did see that Tom, I forgot was it this interview? One of the interviews, Tom is opening up about how she beat his you know what. I don't know if I believe that's true because a lot of people say, when you saw him the next day, he looked fine. I don't know. We don't condone violence here, but I also don't believe anything that comes out of Tom's mouth. I don't. I can't take what Tom says as fact because he says things like comparing Scandoval to O.J. Simpson and George Floyd. I can't take him seriously. He's not a credible witness. All right. So Ariana and Katie are talking about that. Katie says she's not interested in going to this Lake Tahoe trip because she's got other things to do when it comes to the sandwich shop that still is not open. Just saying. It's not open. All right. LVP has a new dog. Donut, cutie. She loves her dog. She has a beautiful home. She really has a beautiful home. I just had to say that. So Lala and Scheana go over there, and LVP sits them down and encourages them to have a conversation with Tom. And she says she feels like Tom is in a dark place. The last time she saw something like this, it was her brother. And she feels probably guilty and triggered because she probably did not take it as serious as she felt that she should have in that moment. Because she probably feels like she could have prevented what happened to her brother if she had done a little bit more. So she wants to do that for Tom. All right? But Lala is still upset because she found out from Scheana that Tom is referring to her as a narcissist. Scheana says, what happens to my friendship with Ariana if I forgive him? I mean, I get it. It's a conundrum because Ariana has clearly said anyone that's friends with him cannot be friends with me. I do not want to have any mutual friends with him. I think that's almost impossible when you're filming a show together because at the end of the day, on some level, this group of folks, if they're going to move forward being on the show, they're going to have to forgive Tom. The same with you, Ariana. It doesn't mean that you have to be friends with him. It doesn't even mean that you necessarily have to film or interact with him. But you're going to be on a show with him. You're going to be in scenes with him, possibly. Just saying. And we said this last week. Honestly, Ariana, these last couple of seasons, because of the scandal and this season, that is the only relevance that you've really brought over the last 2 years of being on the show, to be honest. And look, not everyone needs to be the crazy, erratic person. But at the same time, look, I just don't see how we can move forward in this path that we're currently on. Again, they're filming right now, literally after the aftermath. This is just a couple of weeks, more than a couple of weeks, several weeks after the aftermath of it all. Okay. And if you remember during that time, it was all over the blogs. It was all over everybody in their podcast. Lala and Scheana had their podcast and they were interviewing people and everyone was flashing back and people from the past. Are you guys watching The Valley? Has The Valley even come out yet? Are they saying that Jax and Brittany have broken up and people feel like it's a publicity stunt? Ain't nobody watching that damn stupid show. I'm not. And here's the thing, because Tom later in the episode says that he's still mad at Lala and Scheana because of them doing what they did on their podcast and creating merch and things like that. Here's the thing. I get that. I'm not mad at any of these folks capitalizing off of the Scandoval. They would have been dumb. They all made all kinds of money from this situation. And I'm not even mad at the cast because at the end of the day, they're not getting paid residuals from the show. None of them are producers. This is what the reality TV reckoning was all about. So they need to make their money now and invest that whatever way that they can now. All right? We also have to keep in mind Bravo, NBC Universal. They also have been profiting bigger than any of the cast, including Ariana. They profited way more than the cast. That's why they were running all these reruns. That's why they were encouraging people to go watch old seasons. And we fell for it. And that's why leading up to this new season, they were playing more reruns and they were creating after shows for it. And then they were like, we're going to do The Valley. They all have been, if anything, NBC Universal, Bravo made millions from this situation. Advertising dollars for the show, I can only even imagine what they've made. All right? So I'm not going to be mad at Lala and Scheana for making $1 off of this scandal. What I am, and what I've been saying about Lala and Scheana and the rest of this cast, and what I can stand behind, and I do believe on some level Bravo also had a responsibility to denounce some of the vitriol that was happening on social media around Scandoval and the death threats and the comments that people were making under friends of Sandoval and at Sandoval. But I also said to you guys, Andy Cohen had asked Scheana and Lala and all of them that were on the show about the mob mentality that was happening. I think giving them a window to denounce it, and no one ever did. Only for that mob mentality to turn on them. Saying all that to say, I feel like I've said a lot, okay? So LVP sits down with them and she really has a heartfelt conversation and she really wants them to think about at least extending an olive branch to Tom Sandoval. All right. So James is having his pool party. Ariana's there. Sheena's there. Lala's there. Allie's there. Sidebar, when they were getting ready for this pool party, remember I said to you, every time that James talked, I feel like Allie is looking everywhere else. There was a moment when they were getting ready for this party that Allie kind of looked at him with disgust. I wonder if Allie is done with him. Anyone else notice that? Go back and watch that scene. I feel like she's kind of over James. I can't blame her, though. What's Allie's sign? I can't blame her because James is a lot. I'm sure James has some endearing qualities. Sidebar. Oh, my elephant brain is working today, y'all. Sidebar. James's ex, and also a former cast member. She was on here last season. You know, Miss, Squiggly Fingers. Kristen Dowdy said that James's past of being abusive to women is not alleged. She said that in a recent podcast. And let's be honest, you remember what was said at that reunion. Tom Sandoval said something about that. I can't remember the details, but you guys will remember the details. But he alluded that James had done something while they were on a trip somewhere, and it had to be not covered up. I don't remember what Tom said exactly. Again, I know it's Tom Sandoval, but I believe it because we also have seen some of James's behavior over the years. So she's accusing him of that. So people are like, ugh. Look. So James is not so innocent. But we've been saying that, at least over here in our community. All right. So James's pool party, Schwartz brings another plant. Allie's like, oh, Lord, he goes with another plant. Allie, why don't you just be grateful? At least he's coming over with something. He's not just coming with his hands swinging. I much rather you come with a plant than not come. Some people don't want a plant. I don't want a plant. I like a plant, but I don't want a plant for multiple reasons. You got to take care of it. All right. But he's coming over with a plant, which I think is sweet. You know what I mean? I don't know if the other guests came over with anything, probably just liquor. And James is sober right now. All right. At one point, Lala and Allie have a conversation about James's sobriety. And at first, I was sort of like, Lala, why are you asking about his sobriety? And why are you asking Allie? And Allie encouraged Lala, well, if you have questions, I don't want to, talk about it. You should talk to him. And I get it because, Lala had issues with alcohol and she's sober now. So she wants to kind of be supportive of him in his journey. At first, I was sort of like, Lala, why are you mind your business? That's at first, until they had their conversation a little bit later on. Speaking of Lala, at James's pool party, she pulls Schwartz aside and they actually have a really sweet conversation. I don't know how you guys felt about this conversation between Schwartz and Lala, but I was like, oh, this is actually nice. And I saw some growth in Lala. I'm seeing growth in Lala. Again, I don't know a lot of Lala's past. I've seen stuff, of course, in the rewatch, but at the same time, I don't know if this is true intentions that she's changed and that she's trying to come from a better place and a more open place. But she seems like she wants to be a little bit more open towards Schwartz. And Schwartz is talking about, I'm not going to kiss, Ariana's, you know what. And I don't like the way that she talked to me like I'm subhuman. We talked about that last week. And it looks as if Lala kind of agrees with Schwartz that, everyone's sort of treating Ariana and putting her on this pedestal. Now you're trying to knock her off the pedestal. All right. So Lala says that Schwartz reminds her of her dad and, how people bulldoze over Schwartz. And she says people used to do that to my dad. And she feels like because he never really expressed himself, that just piled on. And now he's no longer with us. And I was like, wow, this was like a really sweet conversation. It was a sweet conversation. Ariana reacts to them bringing up people easing up on Tom. Lala and Scheana bring up what LVP had said. And Raquel recently in her podcast, or one of the podcast interviews, says that she feels like LVP does go easier on the guys. We know that. We really do. However, I do believe that LVP goes easier on the guys, but what she's dealing with right now when it comes to Tom Sandoval's mental health and dark thoughts, I think is definitely important to talk about and definitely something serious, especially with how the Scandoval situation blew up. Okay? So speaking of Tom and Billy, because no one else will film with him, Billy go with him to this cold plunge. And we watch him go through the cold plunge, but then he talks about his relationship with the group. He also talks about his relationship with Raquel. He says he hasn't talked to Raquel in about 3 weeks. Raquel came out in another podcast basically saying that she cut him off because he was pressuring her to leave the rehab facility, and she extended her time at the rehab facility. And apparently she felt like he wasn't being supportive, and that's why she blocked him. And that's why we see during the season, Tom is not speaking to Raquel. But he says he's very much in love with Raquel. He has a connection with Raquel. I'm so glad that Raquel, look, you don't have to like Raquel. You don't have to agree with what happened with Raquel, Ariana, and Tom. However, I think one thing I can respect from her is that she could have come back. A lot of these people would have come back. She didn't come back. She chose herself and her mental health over this show and money. She may have not gotten what everyone else was going to get paid, but she was going to get a nice check and probably a nice bonus to return. Just saying. I say all that to say Ariana says that she's not about to, ease up on Tom because she feels as if, we ease up on Tom and he comes back into the group and he does the same thing. I mean, I'm not going to blame Ariana for feeling the way that she does. She was the one that was cheated on in one of the worst ways. So I don't expect Ariana to ease up on Tom. Tom has said himself, of all the people that should have been treating him like dirt and been on podcasts and trashing him, it should have been Ariana, and she didn't do that. It was the friend group that did it the worst. So this is not even about Ariana doing anything for Tom. I think the rest of the group, Lala and Scheana, feel obligated not to be friends with Tom because of their friendship with Ariana. Okay, so it will be interesting. I believe that's where the fans turned on Scheana in the Lake Tahoe trip when she took a picture with another fan and she was right next to Tom, and it led everyone like, oh my God, you forgave Tom, you're trash, blah, blah. The mob mentality that y'all created. I'm not saying that it's right, because it's not. Anyways, so James and Lala have this really nice conversation, and it seems as if Lala has this sort of affinity for James. So she asked him about his sobriety and sidebar, was James drinking at the pool party? What was that drink that he was pouring into his mouth? Is that what you guys call California sober? He's not drinking certain things, but it looks like he's still drinking. I don't know what that was. Y'all know I don't drink, but it felt like maybe he was drinking something that had alcohol in it. Maybe it wasn't, the same level of or the same amount of alcohol. So they talk about his drinking, and he talks about how Allie left him for a couple of days because of how out of hand his drinking had gotten. So the last time that he went sober was when he was in his relationship with Raquel. And he was sober for like 2.5 years. But he says now that he's chosen sobriety, he's not doing it for someone else. He's doing it for himself. Wait a minute. No, you're doing it because of Allie. He's saying he's doing it for himself, but clearly Allie doesn't like when he drinks, so you're really doing it for Allie. I need you to truly do it for yourself. But Lala says, I'm not going to share anything that you share with me. She likes having these conversations with him. She says she feels a bond with him because they sort of have shared this same path being on this show. And when it comes to their, train wreck years and now their sobriety. All right. So Schwartz is back at his apartment getting a haircut from his friend Joe, someone he had been intimate with, but he's just friends with now. Tom Sandoval comes over and Schwartz invites him to Lake Tahoe, and he encourages Tom to have a conversation individually with the group. But Tom is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna say I'm sorry, for giving Lala content or Scheana content for her podcast. I get it. And like I said, and I've been saying throughout this recap of Vanderpump Rules, is that I do feel like Scheana, Lala, they went in. They went in for weeks, and the numbers for their podcast went up. They made a lot of money to send it to Daryl merch. They made tons of money, so much money that Lala was able to have a down payment on this house that she's living in right now. Probably. It's a beautiful house. Good for Scheana. Good for Lala. Here's the thing. Like I said before, when I come out of the situation and I look down, Lala, Scheana were a small part of the people making money from this Scandoval situation. Yes, Tom, you didn't make any money. Ariana made money. Raquel didn't make money. But look, Schwartz probably lost money because of Schwartz and Sandy and being friends with Tom Sandoval. But you know who made the most money? Bravo, NBC Universal. They made millions. They're making millions. All right, from the situation. So I'm not going to be mad at these reality TV stars that are not going to get paid past these episodes. I'm not going to get mad at them for making the most out of the situation. A lot of people are dumb because they don't make the most out of the situation. Would I have a little bit more integrity and not, throw my friend under the bus or throw him to a mob mentality or encourage mob mentality? Yes, because there's a difference here. They could have capitalized off of this situation by talking about it on their podcast, but they also could have denounced the mob mentality that had been happening around Scandoval. But I think they weren't brave enough. They didn't feel like they could say to people, well, let's give Tom a little grace. You didn't even have to say that, but you could also say, guys, we don't like Tom, but you don't need to threaten his life. You don't need to threaten anybody else's life. All right? But they refused. They refused to do that. At least some of them did. Okay. All right. So, but Tom says that, Tom Sandoval wants, not Sandoval, Schwartz. He's like, well, I don't feel like that's the energy you should come in with in regards to the group. He's making a lot of sense, Schwartz. Okay? Scheana and James go on a double date. As you know, Scheana is struggling with leaving Summer at home with the babysitter. So she left the Summer at home with the babysitter and her mom. Okay? So she can go on a double date with James and Allie. They also discuss LVP encouraging Lala and Scheana and the group to embrace getting back into, at least welcoming Tom Sandoval back into the group. And Allie says, I don't know, I have no personal issues with Tom Sandoval, but I also don't like what he did, and she doesn't feel comfortable with that. I understand it, especially because of the Scandoval of it all on social media and in the press. All right. I'm not going to say too much about that scene. Not a lot happened. I can't spend these recaps rehashing scenes that really mean nothing to me. Just being honest. Just being honest. Okay. Lucy Coochie Apple Juicy. No, you're probably thinking, well, if you remember Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, then you already know what I'm going to lead into. So the storyline of Graham Cracker is unfolding because LVP invites James Kennedy to Vanderpump Pups, and he thinks that they're going to talk about Tom Sandoval, and no, she brings up Graham and how Graham was in this foster care system for about 2 months. He had bit a few people. Look, there have been mixed stories. Raquel came out and talked about her side. James revealed something on his side. They even changed the dog's name. James gets very emotional, says that this dog is his best friend. He did not expect LVP to do this. It feels a little pre-produced, even when LVP is telling us the story and she brings it up to James. I'm just sort of like, something feels like it's missing in this story. It's feeling like Lucy Juicy Apple Coochie, and I'm not here for it. I don't care. Look, I'm happy the dog is not, in a foster care somewhere or, on the line to be, terminated. But I just feel like, okay, are we trying to paint the picture that Raquel just left this dog? And maybe she did. I don't know. But I also don't trust LVP and I don't trust James Kennedy. But hopefully Graham, now whatever his new name is, I forget what it is. You guys will remind me in the live chat. Whatever his new name is, fantastic. I'm glad he has a new home. He looked cute and adorable and well-groomed. Do I think that Raquel was the best dog mom? Well, not really. She seemed a little, just saying. Just saying. Guys, did you see our Tuesday takeover? Well, a lot of you have been asking, Kempire, will you talk about Love is Blind Season 6? Well, we did yesterday, along with Traders, 90 Day Fiancé, and some pop culture stories, including the Kelly Rowland debacle. We posted earlier today an update. Hoda Kotb is speaking out. And not only that, Sherry Shepherd is speaking out in defense of Kelly Rowland. So be sure to check out those videos. And don't forget to subscribe to the Kempire podcast. That's where we've posted some special episodes, some of our live recaps, and additional edits that we add to some of the stories that we've been covering, like that Portia Williams and Simon Gobadia situation. So be sure to check that out on the Kempire podcast. And while you're there, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. And if you haven't already, why haven't you liked this video? Be sure to like the video. It's an easy and free way of supporting not just my channel, but other channels as well. Thank you to our King's Guards for holding us down in the live chat and in the comment section. Shout out to our channel members and our subscribers. And for those of you watching in the bushes, how would you guys rate this week's episode of Vanderpump Rules? I thought it was decent. Like I said, I was in between a 6.5 and a 7, so I'll just say 7. But no promises, guys. If I'm not feeling it next week and you don't see a recap, I hope you don't miss it. I'd much rather spend my time recapping something that I'm interested in. Maybe I'll replace it next week and I will do just a recap on Love is Blind or just the Traders. In my 2024, I want to spend my time and my mental health recapping things that I enjoy, not just things out of obligation. And I told you last season of Vanderpump Rules, I said, right now it's interesting. I cannot promise you that I will recap this show next season. I'm trying, but I can't promise that I will continue. Just saying. Did you like the video? Did you check out some of our old videos? Did you subscribe to the Kempire Radio YouTube channel, our backup channel? Why not? Head on over there after this live. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. God forbid anything happens over here. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to get out of here so I can mind my business. Mind my business. See you guys later. Bye, y'all. Bye, y'all.
move.